The Kia Niro is one of the first cars to be offered with a three-pronged approach to powertrains, with regular hybrid, plug-in hybrid and electric setups all offered. Now there's a new version and it's still taking that same stance when it comes to propulsion, but brings a fresh new look and a bold new interior too. The old Niro was a really popular car for Kia, so can this new version build on the success of its predecessor and bring something new to the table? We're going to jump in to find out. The styling of the old Niro was, well, not much to write home about, but this new car really takes things up a step. We really like the slim front grille and the LED running lights at either sides. While moving down the side of the car, you do have some blocky wheel arch extensions which give it a slightly more SUV inspired feel. The only area we're not sure about is the rear three-quarter, where it can look a little bit clunky. But overall, this is a far more exciting proposition than the car it replaces. As we come to expect from Kia, the Niro is absolutely packed with standard equipment. So even though this car is a relatively entry-level 2 version, it's got all the features that you could possibly want. You've got an 8-inch infotainment system in the middle, which has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay included, and you get a secondary screen ahead of you. You also get this touch-sensitive bar in the middle, which is both for your radio controls and also your heating and ventilation controls. It's switchable by one select button there. And though it does look cool, I think that might be a little bit of a pain when you have to use it on the move. I would just quite like 2 separate sets of controls. Like I said, it is quite cool to look at, but I think how often are you going to go to change the volume and accidentally make your cabin a whole lot colder than what you expected? Elsewhere, good level of fit and finish, nice deep cup holders in the middle. You've got this large section of black plastic in the middle, and though it is quite prone to catching dust and fingerprints, it does help to lift the overall feel of the cabin. You also got some useful chargers ahead of you. Overall, it's just got loads of equipment, which makes this car feel exceptionally good value for money. The Niro's growth spurt for this latest generation is definitely noticeable when you sit in the back of the car. Now, the rear seat is in my position, and I've got loads of legroom, loads of knee room, plenty of space for my feet too, and the headroom is excellent. For a car of this size, the rear seat space is top notch. The material quality isn't up there. This is a base spec car, so there are some scratchy plastics to be found, but everything feels quite hard wearing. And realistically, the core focus here is comfort and space, and you're getting both of those ticked firmly. If you have a look closely as well at these rather funky seat backs, we've also got some integrated USB-C chargers, which I really like. I like the way they've been fitted flush into the seats, and it makes the whole car look a little bit cleaner. Overall, it's a very spacious and practicality focused area, but I think that's just what you want from a car like this. The new Niro is considerably larger than the car that it replaces. It's 65mm longer than before, in fact, and that means more boot space. In fact, with 451 litres of space here, there's 15 litres more than you would have found in the old Niro. Plus, if you do want to extend that load area, you can lower the rear seats down, and that pushes it to 1,445 litres. Now, interestingly, if you go for the solid EV version, the completely electric, then the standard boot area is actually about 30 litres more than in this car. However, the seats down load area is smaller. So if you are looking for outright practicality, this is your best choice. But if you're looking for standard boot space, then that electric version might be a better option. Regardless of whether you go for the regular hybrid that we're in today or the plug-in hybrid, the Niro is powered by a 1.6 litre petrol engine. The difference comes in the electric motor assistance. In the regular hybrid that we're in now, it gets a tiny little motor and a tiny little battery, which means that your electric range is really only centralised around low speed manoeuvres. So if you're parking, for instance, or if you're doing a 3-point turn, it'll use electric power then, but it won't be able to use it at higher speeds. Interestingly, to save weight, Kia has actually removed the reverse gear from the Niro so that when you are reversing, it's just using that electric motor, which I think is pretty cool. But when you're relying solely on that petrol engine, you've got around 139 brake horsepower to play with, and that means a 0 to 60 miles an hour time of just over 10 seconds, which isn't all that sprightly. However, it doesn't feel all that slow when you're actually up and driving. In fact, the response of the engine is pretty decent. The 7-speed dual clutch gearbox that you get in this car does respond quite well to inputs, and it doesn't lag too much when you're requesting that throttle. And though when you do kick down, you do get quite a decent surge, and compared to an old CVT gearbox, it's certainly more pleasant than it would be there. The steering is reasonably lifeless. It's not something we'd kind of expect from a Niro, but it's reasonably accurate, so you can place the car where you'd like it to. It just feels a little bit dead in the middle. One of our biggest issues are with the brakes though. There's a really strange feel to the pedal and it feels quite mushy at the top, and it just means that you aren't all that confident in the brake pedal to bring you to a proper stop, which is just what you want from a brake pedal really. We'd like there to just be a little bit more sharpness to the brake pedal, but this is splitting hairs really. I think if you live with this car on a day-to-day basis, that brake pedal feel is probably going to fade into the background really. In terms of fuel economy, Kia claims just over 64 mpg, which is pretty good for a relatively conventional 1.6 litre petrol, and CO2 emissions stand at around 100 grams per kilometre, depending on which wheel size you go for. The car we're in today is on the smallest wheel, so we've got 16-inch alloy wheels on this car, and as well as offering the lowest CO2 emissions that you can get, they actually give the Niro a nice kind of pliant edge to the ride. It's kind of wallowy, so going around corners you do feel that there's quite a lot of lean, but it's quite refreshing to get into a car that actually errs on the side of comfort rather than trying to iron everything out with a slightly stiffer suspension setup. And that's something we've seen on a lot of the Niro's rivals lately. Visibility is good too. The forward pillars are quite slim, though over the shoulder, that rear pillar, which actually has that vent side into it in terms of design, really does block your over the shoulder view, so that blind spot is quite large in this car. It's something definitely to check out if you are going to go and test drive this car. Of course, like so many other cars in Kia's lineup, the Niro is absolutely brimmed full of assistance systems. So as you may have heard on this video, the lane keep assist does go off reasonably frequently when you're driving on country lanes like the ones we're on today. You can disable it, but it's not as easy to do that as it is in other cars. It would be nice just to have a relatively simple button setup, and though there is a variety of assistance system buttons on the steering wheel, getting them to activate or deactivate, as we would rather like in this instance, is a little bit more tricky than you'd probably like. The new Niro feels like it offers a good level of progression compared to the car that it replaces. It's larger, and that means it's more practical than that older car, and that feels like a big bonus point for people looking in this segment. It's economical too, and though some aspects of the driving experience might be slightly out of kilter with what we'd expect from a car like this, as an overall package, the new Niro is a really compelling one. Thank you for watching this Motors.co.uk new car review on the Kia Niro. Now, what do you think of this new hybrid? Leave us a comment in the section below. And since you're here, please remember to subscribe to the Motors.co.uk YouTube channel, hitting that bell icon so you're notified every time we upload a new review.